In Lecture 7 we'll be talking about the CAD connections associated with ANSYS Design Modeler. Here you can see the agenda associated with Lecture 7. We'll start by talking about the geometry import properties associated with CAD import. We'll then move to talk about the CAD connection tools themselves. We'll then move to talk about one- and two-way CAD connectivity, or uni- and bidirectional connectivity with CAD. We'll then finish by talking about the name selection manager. So here we can see where the CAD import sits as far as the overall pre-processing workflow. We can see here it sits underneath the geometry creation or geometry import stage, here underneath the sketch and 3D operations sections. It's not the case that we simply need to import the geometry from the CAD system and move directly onto the meshing. It's typical and in some cases expected that once we import the geometry from the CAD system, we will need to perform some geometry repair operations, for example, or indeed create some additional geometry in order to allow it to be in a suitable condition for progressing to the meshing stage. An example of this would be import of the solid region and using geometry operation tools in order to extract a fluid region, so we can either perform an FSI simulation or solely a fluid based simulation. So here we can see the geometry properties that are needed to be defined in order to correctly import the geometry from the upstream CAD system. If we look at the image on the right hand side of the screen, we can see the screen grab of the Workbench project schematic page. We have a geometry cell here listed associated with the meshing element. If we right click on this geometry cell, we can open up the context menu. We will see an option at the bottom here listed as properties. If we go into that properties, we can see all the options associated with CAD import, and it allows us to amend and adjust some of these properties so we can correctly import the CAD geometry. It's split into two sections listed as basic and advanced geometry operations, and these include options such as defining the type of the model or the space of the models, for example 3D or 2D, and also allows us to import things like parameters and name selections. And we'll discuss some of these options in the next two slides. So firstly, here we can see the basic properties associated with CAD import. So here we can see all the properties at the top associated with basic geometry options. We select parameters for importing parameters defined in the CAD package, so we simply check this button on here, parameters, and this allows all parameters with the correct prefix to be imported directly from the CAD file. The parameter key is the prefix on the string of the file, on the parameter name that can be imported. So DS will allow all parameters with DS as a prefix to be imported. If we click in this cell where it says DS, just here, and we remove this DS so that this field is blank, it will then import all parameters associated with the CAD model. In a similar way, we have options for name selections. We can check this button on to import all name selections and also give it a prefix for the name selection string as well, so we can filter out which name selections are imported and which are not. In a similar way to the parameter key, if we blank out this field, we can also import all name selections regardless of the naming strings. In the advanced options, lower down in the properties, we can see some of the more detailed preferences associated with CAD import. We can opt for associativity to ensure we have an established association between the upstream CAD system and Workbench. We have some options for importing coordinate systems from the upstream CAD system, the work points, etc. And we also have an option further down called Smart CAD Update, which allows changes in other options to be updated as they are needed.